Okay, we are on the record in CV 2021-053242 in the matter of Laura Owens versus Sean Roanhorse et al. Can counsel please announce their appearance, beginning with plaintiff's counsel?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Jason Vendetti on behalf of plaintiffs Laura Owens and Elizabeth Naylor.
Okay, and do we have Mr. Roanhorse on the line? Can you state your name for the record?
Yes, Your Honor. This is Sean Roanhorse on behalf of Cactus Construction, LLC.
Okay, I set this conference based upon plaintiff's motion for placement of the case back on the active calendar. Can you all give me an update as far as the status of the settlement and whether or not the parties, anything has changed since the motion was filed?
Yes, Your Honor. Unfortunately, nothing at all has happened since our last status conference. If you recall, Mr. Roanhorse at that time represented that he had a check he was waiting on that was coming in the following month, and he intended to use that money to satisfy the settlement that was reached with my clients. After the settlement conference, he and I made plans to speak the following week to discuss payment arrangements. He never showed up for that meeting. I called him multiple times. He never called me back. I emailed him. He never returned my emails. So we had zero contact since the last conference. He has not fulfilled his payment obligations under the settlement agreement, and he has not retained counsel for his company like the court told him he needed to do before today.
Okay, so Mr. Roanhorse?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Mr. Vendetti is correct. I did miss probably. I was down in a region where I didn't have any good cell service at that time, and I'm sure that if he tried to call, he probably didn't get a hold of me. I did have one thing. We are prepared to settle this, but there's a couple things that I didn't know at the time that we found out about in early December. So Miss Owens did receive bonding payout, and we had to repay the bonding companies. And I don't know if that gets deducted from our settlement because of the bonding payment. I mean, even though we've had to repay to CNA and Western Surety, that would be the only question that I have.
No, your settlement, your agreement to settle the case is your agreement to settle the case for the amounts that were agreed upon. So there's a couple of different ways we can proceed. The parties have, my understanding is, a signed settlement agreement. And so the thing to do, I think, is for me to enter judgment on that settlement agreement and in order to comply with it. But I can't really do that, Mr. Vendetti, until I have a motion to enforce the settlement, a proposed order that includes what payments were supposed to be made and any fees incurred to seek enforcement of the settlement. So the other option, of course, is I don't really think it's appropriate in light of the settlement for us to proceed with litigation of the case, because the parties don't dispute that they had a settlement, that it's a binding agreement, that it was signed and executed and in writing. So why don't I do this, Mr. Vendetti? How long would you need to file a motion to enforce the settlement with a proposed order and an application for attorney's fees and costs?
I would ask the court for 30 days, Your Honor.
Okay. It is ordered that counsel for plaintiff shall submit a motion to enforce the settlement agreement, which shall include a copy of the executed settlement agreement and a proposed order for enforcement, along with an application for attorney's fees and costs incurred in connection with enforcing the settlement agreement. And the proposed order shall leave blanks and include Rule 54C language. We will give now Mr. Roanhorse, you'll have 15 days after the motion is filed to file a response. If you don't file a response, I'm going to automatically grant the motion. And what I will tell you in the meantime is when you enter into a settlement agreement, it's a binding contract that I have to enforce. So under the law, when you breach a contract, including a settlement agreement, by not making the payments required, there is the law also requires that I award attorney's fees and costs for breaches of contracts, including settlement agreements. So the longer this goes on, and this, if Mr. Venditti has to take additional steps to seek enforcement of the settlement agreement, that's not only going to, it's going to likely result in an enforcement of the settlement agreement, but it's also going to increase the amount due and owing because it's going to include an additional award of attorney's fees and costs. So I would highly recommend that if there is a chance for you to resolve this issue by complying with the settlement agreement before Mr. Venditti has to file a motion, that you do so. Because if you don't, the cost to you of resolving this is going to increase. Does that make sense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So I'm going to set the deadline for filing a motion to enforce to, let's see, February 24th, 2023. I am going to also extend the matter on the dismissal calendar until February 24th, 2023. If the court does not receive a motion to enforce the settlement or a stipulation to dismiss because the settlement has been complied with, then it will just dismiss the case without prejudice. So I'm giving you both an end date here. We need to resolve this one way or the other, either because the parties comply with the settlement voluntarily or because I enforce it via a motion. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a nice day. We're off the record.
Thank you. Same to you.